specified this LWD. The larger number makes it thicker, smaller numbers make it slimmer. You can change that number, and also if you want, you can add some text to make it more clear for communication. So you can position that text at a specific location, X and Y coordinate, and it shows at that location. So as you can see, this kind of labeling can be helpful for communicating on the graphics.
But how doesn't A has
Another commonly used chart is pie chart. Pie charts also show frequency distribution of categories. So this is also used for categorical variables. It is similar to bar chart in another sense. So you can show different bars in different slices, but you also have to calculate the frequencies beforehand so that it can demonstrate on the pie chart. But I would recommend staying away from the pie chart. Pie chart is not really good and effective visualization. It is difficult to measure the sizes of the pie from visualization. So bar chart is a better representation of categorical variables. But sometimes you may want to use it. Rarely that happens, but just know that it is not very useful. So this is the box plot, and that is also used for single particular variables, numerical variables. It is quite useful, box plot, because it shows the distribution of data, and you can compare it to multiple features. But it also is a good way to show outliers. The middle line shows the median value within this data. In this case, for example, age, this is the median value. And those rectangles shows the area between quartile 1 and quartile 3. And these boxes, the lines that shows maximum and minimum, those are 1.5 interquartile range. This region between quartile 3 and quartile 1 is called interquartile range, like we mentioned last week. And anything greater than interquartile 1.5 interquartile range is going to be above the maximum and above the minimum. And that region is called outlier. So anything lower than the minimum shown in the box plot or higher than the maximum are actually considered as outliers, potential outliers. So that's a good thing about box plot. You can clearly see the outliers, you can clearly see the median values, you can clearly see the distribution. A good example. So this is a box plot of our data points. There's a function called box plot. You can provide individual columns or a data frame containing, for example, in this case, 6 columns. There's height, weight, waist, hip, systolic, and diastolic. So you can clearly see that some of those values, for example, hip doesn't have much variation, but on the other hand, weight has higher variation because the area between quartile range, quartile 3 and quartile 1 is larger. And also you see those numbers, points above the maximum line, and those represent outliers. As you can see, some features have more outliers than other ones. For example, weight doesn't have outlier in the minimum side, but on the maximum side there are some outliers. But height has outliers on the minimum side as well. So this is quite useful to get understanding, for understanding the main distribution of data. Okay, scatter plot is used if you have 2 variables, and it is quite handy. It is one of the most frequently used. It shows the data distribution of 2 variables. basically the same function, plot function, is used, but the difference is now that you put two columns, two variables. The first one is the x coordinate, in this case is the hip. The second in the line is the y coordinate, in the case is waist. And you can also specify pretty much all the x label, y label, main, title. Here the PCH and color, those color shows the points color, and PCH shows the type of the points representation. You can show this as, for example, triangle or point or circle. There are many types. This PCH2 represents triangle, but if you change it to 3, it shows circle and things like that. Okay, line plots are also quite useful for showing continuous data, and you still use plot function. In this case, we have single variable. In this case, it is the price over time. But why do you think line graphs are useful? In what situations should we prefer to use that? What is the most suitable example for line plots? Where do you see this type of charts? In what representation of data would be most suitable? Actually, Mu'taz just answered in the previous question, time series, right? Time series questions, time series data representation is a good candidate for line plots because you see the distribution of data points change over a time, over a period, and you can quickly see what are the peaks and what are the variations that go along. So line chart is quite useful for that. You could also add legends on the continuous plot. For example, in this case, if you have two data points, one for Intel, one for Dell, they have two different representation of the line charts, and you can add the legend at a specific position, and you can, this LTY specifies the different types of representation of the lines. For example, one of them is dashed, the other one is continuous lines. So that's quite useful. One more type of plot is mosaic plot. This is useful if you have more than two variables, especially. If you have two variables and you want to see their distributions, this is a good candidate for a mosaic plot. Assume that you have two variables and you want to see association. In this example, reproductive effort and the malaria. You have a control group and you have experiment group, and you have results that are malaria and no malaria, and you see their distribution. So in this case, you want to understand what is the distribution of control samples and what is the distribution of egg removal. It looks like malaria is more common in egg removal versus control case. So you see actually two variables and their frequency. Okay. There's a package called VCD, and you can import that, install it, and then it comes with a function called mosaic. You can use mosaic, and then this is the data set you want to basically plot, and you can shade it or put the legend, or you don't want it. Those are default values, and it will create this particular graphic. Sometimes you may just want to see entire data set as a matrix to see their distribution. This is a quick example. You have 3 columns, age, weight, and height, and this graphic shows their one-to-one comparison of visualizations. For example, the top area between age and weight shows their distribution. And if you go this side, age and height, and actually this is symmetrical. So there's a diagonal represented by the feature names age, weight, and height. And if this is like a diagonal can be flipped over on other side. So either way, those are symmetrical data. But if you go their intersection, age and weight, you see that there's a distribution of age and weight columns. And there is no really clear correlation between age and weight. But if you go to age and height, there are some correlations, right? As you increase the age, the height also increases as well, right? And then it doesn't change over after a while. And also height and weight has some correlation, but you could also represent multiple columns and quickly get a glimpse of their distribution. Okay, any questions so far? No? Okay. So if no questions, let's take a 10 minutes break and we'll continue from here. So let's take 10 minutes break and come back in 10 minutes and we'll continue from here. Okay.
ذاك اليوم جاسم قابلت واحد ياباني صار لي سنتين يمكن ما شايفه. كل مرة شفته كانت يسب الجيمز يقول ما ضيعت وقت ما ادري شنو. اليوم قابلته يقول لي my god Ghost of Tsushima is the best game I ever played. والله ترو بس تخيل هواي
مشكلة ذي شنو ممكن شغلة كلش تافهة يعني تفوتك.
ايه يعني تفيل هواي تغلط.
تفيل جربتها بالامتحانات. جيت اروح مثلا اروح منايم واجفص. هاي احكي لك ثالث متوسط. ثالث متوسط جيت اروح منايم.
الله ينور. زين والله
تنسى لك المشكلة حافظ
بس ايه تحس دماغك هيك مشوش معلومة موجودة بس هيك
لازم تطلعها بالكرك.
اخ الله.
اي هالقد مصابه.
لكن ايزي والله.
اقول لك هاي كم واحد وياك؟ بس اثنين قاعدين بالمحاضرة. كم طالب بي؟
عندي والله.
والله بس اثنين ثلاثة؟
مبلعين الايوه.
والله خطايا لك. هذا حتى لو يمكن اذا ماكو طالب يشرح. فهمتك. دول هذا من الله. حرامات يعني هو كل شهر ما ادري ايش قد تنفض. احنا شهر.
والله انجز. يعني بس تفتح لينك.
اي حضور اي مو شرط. بس يعني خاف سؤال ما فهمت شغله تعيدها يعيد لك اياه. راح اجيب قهوه دوخه ونعس. يلا انت شو كنت تشوف الشقه؟ باكر؟
خبر صاحبي رد خرج
باكر؟
منه صار له سنه خبرت تقول لي بعد ابو الشقه مرض اسمه ايهاب. قلت له والله نعسان يا ايهاب. تفضل عاد. قال لي يس نزل اسمح انه يوم عرقت كيلو. قلت لي عرقت كيلو. رجعت البيت وزني ناقص كيلو.